you know what, I need to correct my behavior, okay? And then the next part is what they usually translate in a really bad way, because it says, وَضْرِبُهُمْ. Now, this implies that the woman could be struck or beaten or hit in some manner. Because daraba, they usually do like this. This is the expression that the Arabs will use. Daraba. Where did he go? There he is. You're bashful. He ran away. But isn't that right, Sheikh? They would go like this, say this is daraba. And usually, this is a good meaning for that. But daraba, again, I asked some big scholars about this from Al-Azhar in Cairo, with the oldest university standing on earth, by the way. And he said to me, this is daraba. I said, swinging. Yeah, could be swinging and missing. This is daraba. I said, you walk on your wife? What? He said, no. He said, this word is so wide that it has meanings you don't even understand. But in the Quran, when we make any kind of explanation or tafsir of Quran, we have to go to the Quran itself to compare and see how it's used in other places, not just to a dictionary. I said, oh, okay. So what we do is go to chapter 14, Al-Ibrahim. This is the chapter for Abraham. And verse number, I think, 24. And this is what it says, more or less. Alam tara kayfa daraballahu mathla kalama tayyiba. Now, you know this one, right? The word daraba is there, right? It says, don't you see how Allah daraba you like a good word? And I thought, did God hit me with a good word? But then the Sheikh, he's explaining to us. He said, I've got an idea, okay? Are you hungry? Would you like to get some pizza? How does this idea hit you? Hit you. Exact same expression is being used right here. وَضْرِبُهُمْ. It could be that you're simply trying to make another way to get the point across to her as you did in the beginning, because the very next verse, which almost nobody reads, says it clearly. If there is still a dispute between the two of them, the man and the wife, then you bring in her relatives and his relatives and sit together and work it out, if you're truly seeking to do this for the sake of God. So how could that be that a man hit his wife and then goes and gets her father and says, hey, by the way, I was beating your daughter up and it's not going to work? You're watching Guide US TV. Let's return to the Muslims visiting the Christians in Aldersgate Methodist Church. So how could that be that a man hit his wife and then goes and gets her father and says, hey, by the way, I was beating your daughter up and it's not going to work? So the answer, sorry it had to take a minute for this, because this is what we find all over the internet. We find people saying things with no knowledge whatsoever. They didn't take any time to study anything, even Muslims themselves. Some of the Muslims have told us that they can beat their wives because of this verse. And some of the ladies, they don't know any better, they accept it as well. The biggest problem is that 88% of all the Muslims, 1.5 billion in the world, are not Arabs. They don't know the meaning of the Arabic language. We memorize the Quran, there's no doubt about that, in Arabic. But as far as taking time to find these meanings, that's one of the jobs that we have as Muslims, to get across the right meaning, and what we're trying to do with the effort that we're doing with the TV station.
Thank you, Yosef. As both a husband and a father, I can absolutely attest that sometimes it does take me more than once or twice to get my point across. And Colonel Gasson is commander of the Army's Wounded Warrior Command. And he is a bilateral amputee. And he has had experiences with the Muslim community outside of the U.S., outside of Alexandria, that I thought might be an interesting thing to share with this group. It gives you a little different perspective of the faith, the Muslim faith, outside of Alexandria. Colonel?
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. First of all, Steve, what a great initiative, what a great thing to bring the community together. I think this is awesome, and I'm proud to be a part of it. I live a little bit down the street on Fort Belvoir, but I feel like I'm part of this community. I'm going to retire here when I do call it quits and stay in this community. So it's hugely important. I think a great step to breaking down the barriers.
Hold it right about here. Yeah. That'll work.
See if I can clip it. I got a bad hand, so it doesn't. I have to clip it to my shirt. I'm not coordinated enough to do that. Hey, these young children here sitting in front of us, they're the key. They're our future, and it's great to have them there. Even George Washington there. Is that your real name?
Of course is.
Okay. I just saw George Washington. I said, you're an admirer of a prominent man. So I've been in the military for 22 years. It's interesting because when I was in college, I actually took a few semesters of Arabic, and then it got way too hard, and I had to get out of that thing. But the language is difficult, but I think it's a beautiful language, and it's really something to understand. And a lot of the Islamic cultures, we don't understand that the language, the government, the religion is really kind of fused into one. Where we're more of a secular society, they are non-secular, and so that's one of the important differences that are sometimes a little bit difficult for the Western mind to kind of get their mind around. I served in the first Gulf War, so I was in Saudi Arabia and Kuwait. I've been to Bosnia, where that conflict that revolved around religion. I've been to Afghanistan and Host province, and I've been to Iraq, where I was wounded about 3.5 years ago. What I will tell you is that my experience, bar none, with Islam has been nothing but wonderful. A couple stories. I happened to, his name was Noor Mir. He was from Afghanistan, and I met him when I was in Afghanistan and did business with him for really a year, from 2004 to 2005. He happened to be in the United States in late 2007 and was in Washington D.C. and I don't know how, but he found out I was wounded, and I was able to meet him at Walter Reed when I was still in the hospital. And I was so happy to see him. And when I saw him, he literally broke down and cried. I mean, I never appreciated how this man had embraced me as one of his brothers. And it was so powerful. It was so powerful to me to know that someone who I got to know over a year had really embraced me as a brother. And the second point, again a small story, but when I was working with the Iraqi army, we were there as part of the surge, trying to bring down the violence in Iraq. And you're working by these Iraqi soldiers and officers every day, and sometimes you wonder if you're making a difference, But I had a number of things sent back from Iraq stories and gifts sent back from the Iraqi Army officers that I had served with when I was wounded. And again, almost to a man, they were just devastated when I was wounded. And so I'll tell you, it's a loving religion, just as loving as ours. And Yusuf, you had just a great explanation to that. I've learned some more about it today and appreciated it more with your explanation. I harbor no bad feelings or ill will for any of my experiences. I'll tell you, as a Christian, and I'll share this as a Christian, when I laid down on the ground, I was laying down on the ground not knowing whether I was going to live. I asked God not to die in Iraq. And that night, I went through over 129 pints of blood. And so I lived, obviously. And that in itself might seem like a miracle, and I do appreciate it as a miracle. But I tell you, the greatest miracle for me is that when I woke up in the hospital, after I lost my legs, that I had no hate in my heart. And I believe that God took that away from me. And I embrace Islam and I embrace God as all. And so I want to go back there. I want to go back there someday and walk on the same ground that I was wounded. And I'm proud to share that as a Christian, but I welcome my Muslim brothers and sisters with an open heart. And this dialogue, these steps that you all are taking to embrace us, because we're all God's children, and I think all of our books say that. Sure. And it's a great it's great to just learn about each other. We can accept each other for our differences, but appreciate and build on how we're the same and how we're really in common. I tell people all the time, I said, you know what? The average Iraqi, the average Afghani, the average American, the average whatever peoples of whatever country I've been in, they all want peace. They all want to earn their living. They all want to raise their families, and they all want to pursue happiness. Sure. And that's what we have to build on. And if we put aside and we focus on where we're the same, I'll tell you, there's nothing we can't overcome and we can't accomplish. Thank you.
Yeah. Tell you what. There we go. Any questions for the Colonel?
Yes, sir.
First of all, I'd like to, first thing I would do, I'll just do it. I'm very proud of our brother here for this statement and the way he laid it out for us. And I just have a simple question. I'm going to stay close. I'll give you the microphone. It's all right. Well, my question is about the Arabic language. Have you had a chance to read the Quran in the Arabic?
I've tried, but I really couldn't get through it. I could say, like I almost said Markaban, but then when I say that, there's no one here from Egypt, so they never understand me.
Egyptian joke.
Well, how?
Yes. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Why?
Alhamdulillah, he's got it. He's good. All right. But did you read it in English?
A little bit. I'm not enough to remember, but
Did you find anything objectionable?
no, not at all.
Did you like it?
I did. One of the things that I thought was really appealing about Islam is that there's no face for God.
Yeah.
And as a concept, as a brain, so what it said to me is that nobody could say I'm closer or in closer as a because we all want to identify. Someone wants to be on top. Well, Islam says that everybody's the same, and so that there was no people or no culture or no one that could say they were above someone else. And I think that's a beautiful concept.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
I don't know about the rest of you folks here. I could end up being Speaker of the House if I'm not careful. John Boehner and all of his attributes there. I'm going to try and get through it. Dave?
You're watching Guide US TV. Let's return to the Muslims visiting the Christians in Aldersgate Methodist Church.
Muslim family in Manchester, New Hampshire. They did similar to you. They did not have their center yet. They're in the process of building one, and a lot of the religion, the teachings, came out of the home. They mentioned a few things that were kind of difficult on the children, like the one girl played basketball, and she wore a garb that was unlike that the rest of the players wore, and some of the opposing teams resisted that. They didn't want her to play. Fortunately, her coach and her teammates understood it, and she was able to play. But I think that's just one example of the kinds of things that you might be dealing with. And what else? What are some examples of these kinds of things that you're assimilating into the society of the United States of America? What are the problems that you're dealing with?
Hi, my name is Simi. I've been here, I came here in 91. I was 9 years old and I've been raised here. I went to middle school here, high school, college, and just lived here all of my life. Speaking of assimilation, I think that begins for us the second we get here. The assimilation begins because for us, it's not really an option. It's a necessity in order to communicate, in order to relate to one another. Assimilation is a very important part of it. Some of the problems that we had, I went to Harlem High School, and 10, 15 years ago, I was one of the very few Muslims in my school. I think in the whole school, or in my classroom, I was maybe one or the second Muslim in the whole class. And it was a mostly white community. There weren't many minorities there. And I like those people. When in my gym class, I wore sweatpants. Even if it was summer or winter or whatever, it was my t-shirt and sweats. I had to explain to people why I wore it. And the reason was that, well, we don't show our bodies. We don't expose the body to a degree where just normal Americans, Christians, other religions do, but not for us. That's from my point of view what I was taught, that I'm not supposed to expose my body. And you just try to maintain. I didn't wear a scarf at the time. I'm wearing a scarf now, but for the first 9 years, I didn't wear a scarf. And even now, sometimes I take it off, sometimes I don't. And I think that's the one thing with all these women here. Some are wearing, some will show their hair, some will not. I'm wearing pants and shirts. Some wear long, which are called shalwar kameezes, long shirts, different beautiful prints. Some like Amatola, she's wearing a hijab, and that's covering the whole body and not exposing different body parts, like that you cannot see the body. And that's one thing that I think that's one difference between countries. like Pakistani women, they will wear, this is more Pakistani clothing, shalwar kameez, long scarf. Arabic countries, I think underneath they all wear pants, shirts. They all wear jeans and skirts, but they cover their clothing with long hijabs. And that's a lot of the Arabic clothing. They don't have clothes like ours from Pakistan, from India, from what other countries? Bangladesh, yeah. Yeah, they wear a lot of saris. Indians wear a lot of saris. And it's a choice. I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions, that we're forced to wear these things, and that's so not the case. I mean, I don't know anybody who's forced to wear anything that she didn't want to wear. None of my friends, not any of my cousins or anybody is ever forced to do anything. We're not forced to marry. We're not forced to do something that we didn't want to do. I mean, yeah, there's a certain degree where parents, just in general, they discipline their kids, and they discipline some a little harsh, some not as harsh. But as far as hitting them or beating them, I think that's more personal or choice, I would say. It's not taught. It's not, like moms and dads, like they're not taught that you're supposed to beat the kids, or they're supposed to beat your sisters, you're supposed to beat your wife. It's still not the case. Everybody goes through the same issues, the same problems, the same, from puberty to all the other adult issues that most of us have. I mean, most of my American friends have. We have the same ones, except it's just a little different because we have our culture to hold on to as well as the American part. And that's some of it that we just embrace automatically. I can say my mom over there, she's American, she's white. So, I mean, she was teaching me one part of being American, and I learned the other part of being a Pakistani and being a Muslim. And I'm a combination of it. And most of the people, most of the kids, most of the young adults, that's where we are. We're not taught to make our differences, kind of read aloud. It's more of assimilation, more of the commonality, how we want to come together as friends, as families, and just,
Thank you. Thank you.
My guess is that many of the mosque community here are first generation, perhaps. And I'm curious, as you look around the Washington area, and maybe just start with your organization, do you tend to come from multiple countries, and how would you describe that your community? And if you look around the Washington area, if there are other mosque communities, do different first-generation nationalities tend to go to one mosque than another, or is it more like, I live in this neighborhood, so I'll go to this one? So what countries are you from, and if you were in another part of the Washington area, how would you answer that?
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Isam Tillawi. I moved to Mount Vernon about 17 years ago. And I'm married and I have 4 children. They're all the generation you're talking about. And my background, I'm a physician. I have a medical clinic across the bridge. And I lead a prayer in our masjid. I want to thank Steve and Diane and everybody and all organizers. This is, I believe, is a historical meeting because it's the first interfaith meeting that we are all grateful to. I'm glad that we had the opportunity to meet all of you. And also very grateful that you allowed us to pray in your church. And we like to invite you, God's willing, when we build our masjid, to come and visit us. And I promise you we will not have those just hors d'oeuvres, we'll have an international cuisine. And that's the answer, international. Our religion is global. And if you go to any masjid, you're not going to find only Arabic people. You can